Thank you. It's all very exciting here in Lecture Theatre 3 in LUMS, and it's equally exciting, I hope, for the people that are behind me online. It's lovely to have you all here. I think everybody knows how important trust is in marketing. Trust is actually an essential sort of intangible commodity for every business going and for every organisation going. If you haven't got trust, you haven't got anything. And we can see what happens to governments when there's no trust in the government. I'm not going to go there though. So what we're going to look at today is trust, influence and the future of social media marketing. Again, with AI and with everything else that's going on, all forms of marketing are changing very rapidly, most particularly social media marketing. Are we going to have, we have AI generated content already. We know we have that. We know that marketing firms are switching to AI generated content writing. We know as well, though, that punters don't trust AI in the way they trust a human. Are we going to have AI generated influencers? It's probably already happening. Vinny might be able to tell me. I'm sure that we are. So who have we got here today with us, our exciting panel? We've got Vinny Wong, who's online behind us here, is sitting in an office in London. He's the global social strategy lead of TikTok. Lots of social media marketing on there, and Emre's waving at him. He's responsible for translating the company's strategic narrative into impactful world-class social campaigns. 8 years of experience in digital communications, and of course a Lancaster alumni and great friend of our lovely Mary Hargreaves, who set up the Marketers in Residence, so we'll give her a shout out while I'm at it. Vinny operates at the intersection of creative vision and analytical rigor. He plays a crucial role in shaping how the TikTok brand shows up consistently across platforms and regions. As a strategic leader, he develops best-in-class playbooks and measurement frameworks to ensure brand authenticity drives measurable business results for the entire advertising ecosystem. So Vinny is also, as I mentioned, one of our Marketers in Residence and an honorary fellow and a graduate of the class of 2018. That seems like an awful long time ago now, doesn't it? Before COVID. Well, it does. It does. I can say that. We've got the lovely Simon Jamieson here, right next to me. He's the managing director of MLP, one of UK's biggest rewards and loyalty businesses. So you know your little cards that you've got, like I've got my booze card. I don't know if you're responsible for booze cards.
Oh, not booze.
Not booze, no. Okay, well, that's all right. Booze is very elite. You can't help that. Maybe you'll get it one day in the future. Simon is another marketer in residence at Lancaster University and a graduate of the class of 2001 advertising and marketing. So that's a very long time ago, indeed. Yeah. He's a self-confessed loyalty, rewards and gamification geek. So he's got a lot in common with Mike. And he's created award-winning marketing campaigns and loyalty propositions for some of the world's biggest brands. To be fair, Boots is not a big brand. It's just my favourite supermarket. I like to get a promotion in for them. Simon's life mission is to create positive emotions. He believes that true loyalty and profitability comes from creating emotional connections and relationships with clients and customers, or as he calls it, delighting customers and delivering results. That sounds very nice. Now, Darren Savage is online. He was here in person last time. He also is in South London at the moment. I think he said Balham. And we, in his own words, which we agree, Darren Savage is a swashbuckling interdisciplinary strategist, lecturer, author and David Bowie impersonator. I don't know if we're going to get ground control to Major Tom, but never mind. Darren's fortunate to have worked at some of the world's biggest marketing agencies and the best marketing agencies and on their biggest accounts. And he's left them in a better state than when he started, he says. Honestly, we don't have time to list all 15 of them here. So there you go, you're not getting them. Ask him afterwards. At the moment, Darren is primarily a freelance strategist working across a range of brand communications, customer experience, innovation, product and service projects. Darren is another distinguished marketer in residence and fellow, and he is also a graduate of the class. Oh, we're getting even older now. 1996? That's before I went to university. And he's got a beautiful dog with him. Look, I wish I could have brought my lovely poodles, but only one of them's qualified to come on campus. The other one isn't, so I couldn't bring them. Next, we've got Sarah Wiggins sitting over here in at the front of the platform. Sarah's a PhD researcher in the department. However, she has special experience, which is why she's included with our distinguished marketers in residence. She specialises in digital and responsible marketing. Her research area explores the blend of humanity and technology, primarily focusing on digital and social media platforms. Her PhD analyses the concepts of AI personalization, platformization, and datafication, and their biopolitical impact on consumer autonomy. And she's also a senior marketing and communications officer for a large national organization where she manages a Liverpool portfolio. So you can see she works in the area too. This includes unique and historical buildings, and she promotes and does the social media for all of these. She's also got experience of working in advertising and marketing industry. She was the marketing manager for Eden Festival, which was a major music festival in Southwest Scotland. Sarah is a graduate of the class of 2024, so she's very fresh and up to date. Advertising and marketing. And 23 as well. She's been a graduate twice. That's a bit greedy. Okay, now we have here Dr. Mike Ryder. Now, Dr. Mike Ryder, yes, he is a lecturer in marketing and a senior fellow of the HEA, but he is famous for Warhammer. He's very famous for Warhammer. He has had features written about him and Warhammer, and he was the man who primarily, in partnership with colleagues in Germany, organised a big conference on Warhammer. But also, he is a digital marketing expert. Maybe he does digital marketing about Warhammer, perhaps. I don't know. He's also very interdisciplinary, science fiction, robots for wars, all these sorts of things, literature, philosophy, history, technology, so on and so forth. He actually started out doing sort of marketing for the health industry. I know this, you see, not on my notes here. I just know this. Dentists. Oh, yes. So he's also, but he's also a director of a training provider for the healthcare sector. He's a freelance digital marketing and marketing communications consultant. He does digital and social media marketing for various universities and businesses, and continues to work in sectors such as healthcare and indeed entertainment. So these are our lovely speakers, and our first speaker today, if I get it in the right order, is Vinny. And Vinny is going to set us off with about 7 minutes of provocative, interesting and informative comment on trust, influence and the future of social media marketing. So I'll hand it.
Cool. Well, thanks for the intro. Thank you for having me. Sorry, I've got a cold over the weekend, so my voice is a little bit cranky, but bear with me. So yeah, well, so where to start? So maybe I'll give a bit of a background of for my day-to-day. So I sat within the global integrated marketing communication team on the enterprise side for business. So my role, as mentioned, is essentially looking after how TikTok, our brand, showed up across different platforms, regions, and different communities on a global scale. So day to day, that means taking our big picture strategy narrative and translating it into more impactful market-facing campaigns. So it's a really fun balance for me of being like both creative and strategic at the same time, and trying to connect like genuine cultural insights and brand storytelling with platform innovation. So yeah, really to drive real impact and measurable outcome for our users and also our business partners as well. So yeah, I guess in my role today, looking at a lot of how brands can like show up authentically in the space that are moving at the speed of culture. So I tend to look at sort of like the evolution of like trust and influence and social media in two main shifts. So first is like we're seeing like a massive shift in how people are using different platforms and like evolving it, especially on TikTok, evolving from a pure entertainment hub or social media into a primary search and discovery engine. So and when people like really looking for like restaurant recommendations, like skincare routine, or like even career advice and stuff, they aren't just like going into like traditional search engine anymore. They're really looking up into platform like TikTok and other social media platforms as well. And I think the reason comes down to entirely trust. So really seeing like audience are wanting more authentic content, seeing a real person behind the content and in like a real environment as well. So giving that unfiltered options. So I think for marketers, this really changes the game in the past few years. And I personally think that influence is no longer just about trying to orchestrate a viral moment, or it's all about kind of being natively discoverable and providing that genuine utility when your audience is actively looking for those content, looking for those answers. So I think that's quite important. And secondly, I think there's also a massive shift towards native and entertainment first storytelling. So when I sort of first joined the company, or even prior to that, when COVID hit, so there was a lot of changes in terms of how users and brands are using social media. And I think the audience are now very naturally gravitating towards the content that feels a bit more native to the platform that they're on. So whether you're on Instagram, Snapchat, or TikTok, I think highly polished campaigns and ads, they have still have this space, the place, but in an entertainment first feed, and especially for TikTok, people are really looking for that connection, that elements of education, or maybe even just for a bit of joy. So I think when brands are like adopting this like native language and like speaking to these audience of the platform, leaning into more like lo-fi aesthetic, creator-led format, and just being part of like the real conversation, in the comment sessions, they tend to build trust a little bit more organically. So yeah, so when we ask what good social media marketing look like today, for me, I believe it's highly collaborative. It's about co-creating with the communities and the creators who are already the cultural nuances of this space. And I really like look forward to take part in this roundtable and hear from all of the experts in the room. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Lovely. Has that gone back on again? I think so. Am I working? Am I up? I got it wrong. Yes. Okay. Simon is next. Simon, have you got a lapel mic?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Cool. Let you go in there.
Okay, super. So I'm going to take a little bit of a different view of social media and trust. Actually, I'm not a social media user apart from one platform, which is LinkedIn. So I'm not on Instagram, I'm not a TikToker, actually. So, however, my wife is. So my wife is an Instagrammer. So a bit of insight into the world and how it works. But what I am really interested in is loyalty and trust. And my job is to help big businesses create loyal customers. And when we do that, you have to build trust over a period of time. It's built, not and earned over time. And I think the bit for me that jumps out with social media is that it can have a really, really positive effect and a really negative effect on trust. And the big area that I think is interesting is how brands can put their staff members, can put authenticity in the front of customers in a way that over the past, say, 20, 30 years, they haven't been able to. So I often talk about the story of when I graduated in 2001 and what the world looked like then. It was the very early days of digital media. And actually, over that 20 years, what we've seen is customers previously, before that time, built trust from the people they interacted with at a brand level. So, story that I did a lecture a few weeks back and talked through some of the students with this. My mum, for example, used to have an interaction with the local bank manager. He was the embodiment of that brand. He was the person she trusted. When the digital kind of era came about and people started to go online, actually brands didn't have a way to interact on that one-to-one personal level anymore. Social media has actually given brands the opportunity to do that again. So I think social media has got a real positive influence in some ways. A great example is M&S. M&S, about 2 years ago, really, really slick brand, invest heavily in, some of the best advertising in the market. But they took a risk a couple of years ago. They said, why not open each of our stores up to its own social media presence, where the staff get to do what they want? the staff get to represent M&S on a one-to-one level. Now, 10, 15 years ago, if that had gone to a CMO, they wouldn't have touched it. They've got absolutely no chance of relieving our staff to promote us. But actually, it's been one of the big successes of the last 2 or 3 years for them as a brand. They had a big issue a few years back, where actually about 6 months ago, where they had a scandal for customers, the data scandal, and actually Marks and Spencers were able to ride that out. Why? Because they're one of the UK's most trusted brands. Now that's because of the way they treat their customers, the way they have opened up to the nuances of social media. And I think there's lots of brands out there who can really strengthen their trust by opening the doors of social media on a wide scale, like M&S.
The next person up is Darren Savage, who's online with his beautiful dog, who I hope is going to contribute to the discussion. So we'll let you go now, Darren.
I've got a presentation. How can I show that? Is that on screen?
Do you know about? Share your slides using the button.
Oh, right. Yes. Let me see whether the technology works. Hang on a minute. Share.
There we are. Yes.
Okie dokie. Right. Window. This one.
Oh yes, there we are.
Okay. Right. Is that? Hang on a minute. Let me just.
We can see your presentation.
Full screen.
Can you make
screen.
it full screen?
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Let me just view. Enter full screen. Okay. Can you see that?
Yes, we can see it. We can see the whole. Do you want to? Have you got it on present slideshow? Because we can see the slides all down the left-hand side.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've just gone full screen. But yeah, look. Sometimes the technology is a bit weird. I'll get going. I've got time. I'm going to put myself on a timer to prevent myself from ranting on too much. So I'm going to go now. Okay. So I've called this "Rip It Up and Start Again." Why social media promised connectivity but delivered a prison, and how to remake it without the need for tech bros, greenheads, and liars. Oh, this is not going to work, is it? It's not moving. Oh, there you go. So the first thing I've done is I've looked at some snapshot data from a report from Brandwatch. But first, I think it's important when we're talking about trust. It's two sides of the same coin. Humans trust someone or trust something to do two things, which is reduce potential risks and increase potential gains. And because humans are risk averse, the potential risks far outweigh the potential gains from trusting something or someone or social media. These are the stats that I got from Brandwatch. I won't read them out in too much detail, but you can see from the top one that is a very small amount of conversations are led by brands. Hello.
I'm sorry, Darren. I'm sorry to stop you, but we can't. Your slides are not moving on for us.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. Let me just try again.
Is it a PDF?
No, it's a presentation. Let me just.
Is it a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And then now
That's better. It'll work.
Oh, okay. So you're going to click for me.
So you tell her next.
Right. I'll just shout at next. Okay. Let's do catch it. Right. Next. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. If you skim forward to the screen with the stats on it, it's the black one with the kind of the ripped quotes. Okay, right. So if you saw this again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about these. Huge rise in anxiety, but also people actively talking about anxiety caused by social media on social media. People are scoping out clickbait and reporting them. It's increasingly negative when brands are trying to just get headlines and just get attentions. And then also people are taking control of things and are going after brands that they don't feel are trustworthy. If you go on to the next one. This is a stat from Deloitte, which I think is interesting, which is, an increasing number of people have deleted a social app over the last 12 months. Some of those things will be when people like Musk acquired Twitter and wrecked it and turned it into X. Other people, it's more of a slow, graduate decline in numbers and people using those things, which I think trust is a critical component of why people are deleting their socials. Next. So again, rather blithely, I think people used to go to social to get away from real life. And I think people are starting to turn back to real life to get away from social media, or I hope that's the case. Next. So what's really going wrong? Next. If you look at the history of humanity for many, many years, if you go on to the next slide, please. The majority of ordinary people, like us, have been ruled over by rich, sadistic thugs or priests, or both, that have used extreme violence to gain and maintain power and control the populace. Next, please. Today's sadistic thugs or priests are people like Zuckerberg and Musk and Pichai, because these are the people that control the mechanisms of social media, of surveillance capitalism, and these are the people fundamentally to blame for the current mess that social media is in and the harm that it's causing people and the lack of trust. Next, please. I think what's happening at the moment is you might be familiar with the expression, the military industrial complex. And this is particularly an American thing, whereby the people that buy weapons have got a relationship with the people that make the weapons. And the people that buy weapons are also the people that use the weapons by going to war. And there's quite a lot of that going around at the moment. And I think what's happening with a lot of social channels is there is a version of the military industrial complex between a lot of the media platforms, the technology platforms, and the brands. Not all of them, but some of them are complicit within this. So in addition to the likes of Musk and his mates, I think there's a very, very negative dynamic going on. Next. So I'll wrap up by just a quote. Well, not wrap up. I've got some very, very quick fire predictions with my 2 minutes that left. So this is a quote from The Great Gatsby. There were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money, all their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess that they had made. And this is exactly what is happening at the moment because of the behaviors of people like Musk and Zuckerberg and pals. Next. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, but I've got 5 observations of things which are going on, which I think are going to continue going on. The first thing is accelerated fragmentation. I think you're going to get increasing people going into niche communities, interest-based networks, and interacting with like-minded people that they trust, and following a similar thing to that. The next one I've got, number 2, is exponential AI slop. It's becoming very, very easy and cheap and fast to generate AI slop. And that also means a massive increase in the number of lies. There was a BBC program on the other day talking about how easy it was to spin up fake images of the war that's going on at the moment between the Americans and the Israelis and Iran. And it's very, very difficult for humans to spot this, and it'll become increasingly difficult. The next one I've got here is this is a hope, but I suspect it might happen because there are signs of this happening, is that the creator economy goes HBO. And I hope, and I think I've already started seeing this, that platforms are going to compete for the best creators and give them better preferential revenue deals. And I think we'll see an acceleration towards those subscription-based models like Patreon and Substack, where people pay a relatively small amount of money to follow people and communities that produce content which is of really good quality. The next one I've got is the reckoning of the attention economy. I think one of the stats I had up front was people are increasingly aware of the damage that social media has had on society, on mental wealth, and they're calling it out and calling out on different social platforms. And then the final one, just because this is about trust, is that identity and trust are going to become ever more critical and ever more central. So very, very difficult because of bots proliferating to verify that the people you're interacting with and the creators of those things are human. I suspect the platforms won't develop tools to let people weed out the AI from the humans, but I can imagine the likes of Apple will start to integrate that within their native technologies. And then finally, just to wrap up, I think there's a brilliant opportunity for brands to lead essentially a renaissance of human-made quality creativity. And like Vinny said, it doesn't require huge Chris Nolan budgets. It just needs to be good. It needs to be original. It needs to be well thought through, well acted out, well performed, well articulated. So there is hope, but I think people need to act now. Otherwise, I just think the whole thing's going to blow up.
Thank you very much, Darren. As usual, you provoked our thoughts tremendously. I'm going to hand over, and very interestingly as well, and lovely slides. I like your slides. I'm going to hand over to Sarah, who's got to follow this.
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. Very hard act to follow, Darren. That was amazing. Okay, so my name is Sarah. I am the Senior Marketing and Communications Officer for Europe's largest conservation charity. I was previously the marketing manager for a major music festival in southwest Scotland. I'm also a LUMS-funded doctoral researcher in the Department of Marketing, where my research focuses on the blend of humanity and technology. And I'm also a seminar tutor at Marketing 234, our social media module. Oh no, thank you. So, a very optimistic opening line. Social media could be becoming a modern wasteland. My take is that platforms are changing and potentially that's not for the better. Evidence suggests that platforms are in decay. So my question to you is social media dying? And my research suggests that it could be so. So my research explores a phenomenon called enshittification, which is a three-stage platform decay process whereby social media platforms first will begin by prioritizing their customers, so the end user. In the second stage, platforms abuse those customers and they prioritize their business customers. And in the third and final stage, platforms abuse these business customers and then they die. So do you remember when social media used to be social, when people used to post, you used to see posts by your friends and family? Users now see more corporate content than accounts that they follow because of platform decay. So social media could actually be becoming anti-social. My research suggests that users feel a sense of platform nostalgia for how platforms used to be. Platform decay is leading to platforms being unusable yet unquittable, with users being treated as data points. Hyper-targeted content keeps users on platforms to collect their behavioral data, and this leads to damaging practices like doom scrolling. And so then if that is the impact for consumers, I've then gone away and thought, well, what could my research mean for marketers? And arguably, marketing is not working. And there's an ad saturation where it's a fast-paced time for marketers. With the sheer number of ads that people are presented with, it's a very challenging time. AI is simply amplifying this. We're just seeing a homogenization of content where everything looks and feels the same. And this is potentially causing a trust deficit. As Simon mentioned earlier, trust now needs to be earned. And so then, what can we do? So I'm reading a really good book at the moment by Phil Tragus-Evans, and this is called Human First Marketing. And he created a framework where he puts people, authenticity, connection, and purpose at the very heart of advertising strategy. And according to Professor Celia Moore at the Imperial College, we need to lean into our humanity. So what does that mean in practice? So it's about putting people at the heart of marketing strategy and for marketers to then know their audience. It's about not just posting content just because you feel that you should. Strategy should then be purpose-driven, and there is so much power in storytelling. Content for the sake of it can just lead to no engagement and no traction at all. And I would argue that it's about quality over quantity, rejecting the hustle culture and just going back to basics. So instead of seeing digital marketing and traditional marketing as two totally different things, it's just an extension of the other. So going back to good old traditional marketing practice. Thank you so much, everyone.
Sonia.
I have Mike Ryder to sort of bringing up the rear. Where are you going to stand, Mike?
Well, we were going to stand here.
Is the camera being?
I can stand behind the lectern, I don't mind. I just, whichever works. It's fine, yeah. Sorry.
In the middle, right? We're just getting Mike lined up so the audience online can see him. I hope you can all see Mike.
Everyone.
Okay.
Right, thanks everyone. So hi everyone, my name's Mike. This isn't going to be a positive lecture, by the way. I should warn you in advance. This is not working. Why is this not working? The clicker's not working. There we go. Right, just to give you a bit of an overview of me, I was already introduced at the beginning by Karen and Emre. Thank you very much. So my background is very much in professional marketing. Came into academia about sort of 10 years ago now. I am now the Programme Director of the MSc Digital and Social Media Marketing. It would be remiss of me not to mention it as I'm standing here in front of you all today. If you are interested in any of the topics we're talking about today, please do send me an email, m.ryder@lancaster.ac.uk. I am a marketer. What can I say? There is a QR code there to my course. Please do come and join it. And it's great to see some of my students here. But despite all this, I thought I'd start with this. It's a bit rubbish, isn't it, social media? It's actually, I think it's a bit crap. I kind of hate social media. I'm on it because I teach about it. I spend a lot of my time talking and thinking about social media in various different forms. But it was all going so well. Started 2005, 2006-ish with the emergence of something called Web 2.0 or 2.0. It was a kind of a new philosophy for the internet, for the web. And it was this period known as the web as platform. This is what the tech bro O'Reilly came up with in 2005. The idea that users become participants in creating and shaping the World Wide Web that we're in. And around this time, there were several different publications that came out trying to sort of promote the idea of Web 2 to everyone. Not least this book here, We Think by Charles Ledbetter. You look beneath the surface, Charles Ledbetter is a very interesting chap. Former Marxist, or maybe reformed Marxist, I don't know, but he was also former advisor to Tony Blair at the time. And he created this book basically telling us about how the internet was going to be this great thing of mass innovation, right, and not mass production. And this idea that we'll all collaborate and everything would be great. The problem is, it didn't really turn out like that way, did it? In fact, most of us would prefer to watch memes of cats, or indeed, actually, I quite like this one, which is an adaptation of Echo and Narcissus by John William Waterhouse. Here you have Narcissus staring at a mobile phone in the water, reflecting himself back. Yeah, I think this is kind of what it's become. And it's quite depressing, really, but I do like to talk about this in my classes as I promote the benefits of social media to everyone. But we did see this coming. The Cult of the Amateur, this is Andrew Keane, right as far back as 2007, kind of foresaw that user-generated content was going to kill the economy and kill our culture. And you know what? I kind of agree with him, actually. I think it has turned out to destroy our culture and lose our meaning, because it poses, of course, this question, well, where next for trust? Where next for authenticity? So this is a big deal for universities, and this is why I'm really glad to be speaking to you all at this event today, because social media kind of undermines universities and everything we stand for as professionals, as academics, and indeed as researchers and as students. Partly, actually, it's because the selling point of the internet has kind of actually come to backfire on it, because the democratization of the internet has undermined traditional power structures. So what this used to mean is back in the day, before Web 2 in sort of 2005-06, you had this sort of very much one-way power relationship. You had websites on the one hand, and they would deliver information to users who would kind of passively absorb the content. And so power was kind of a one-way thing. The people who owned the websites had all the power. Now, of course, in Web 2, we have this big feedback loop because the users become a part of the product. And what this means is we have a two-way flow of power, both from the website owners and from the users back to the websites. And what this does is this creates conflict. Because ultimately, this is both a good thing and a bad thing. As those of you who have seen my lectures before, it has given the people a voice, which is arguably a good thing, right? It lets everyone, we can talk about whatever we like online, we're free to do so. However, what it means is now anyone can be an expert, anyone at all. And so how do we know who to trust? So this then leads me to the big old existential question. Those of you who watch my lectures, I always bring a bit of existentialism into my lectures. What is ultimately the point of me? My students have asked me this. They ask me this regularly, and I do like to reflect on this question. I've got some of my students in the room right now. What is the point of me? This is a photo of me taken from the Lancaster University Experts Directory. I ask you all here today, what is the point in academics, researchers, students, when anyone with a smartphone can post content online? Why? What's the point? Why? Because ultimately, what is the purpose of universities when anyone can claim to be an expert and have, inverted commas, knowledge? In the world of Web 2, essentially, anyone can pretend to be anyone. There is nothing to stop anyone here basically going out right now and setting up an account and claiming to be Dr. Mike Ryder or anyone else here, and there's nothing to stop you, right? You can literally all go do it now, and there's no way that we could tell the difference between you. And so, what is the point? We do have to ask ourselves, because ultimately there's no accountability in the World Wide Web as it is today. There's no traceability, there's no authentication of identity. Arguably, I would suggest to you, we've got social scientists in the room, is Web 2 the ultimate postmodern phenomenon? It's a rejection of science, cultural relativism, where everyone's right, no one's wrong. Everything essentially kind of becomes a bit meaningless. And I would suggest to you all that this is all really, really dangerous for culture and for society. So what can we do as marketeers? I've just got 2 or 3 slides left. I just thought I'd pose some provocations for you all from my own sort of perspective, at least. I mean, as marketers, perhaps maybe we should, I'm glad that I hadn't shown Sarah my slides, but we should focus perhaps on quality of content and authenticity. Do things because we genuinely believe in them and not because we think we need to be seen to be doing them. Don't jump on cultural bandwagons. I do a big thing in my classes talking about the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Yeah, don't look into what brands were doing around that, because my day, some of that stuff was shocking. Build meaningful relationships with customers. This is why I'm glad we've got Simon here, because I think your points are absolutely fundamental to what we should be doing as marketers, building meaningful, authentic relationships. And of course, be prepared to show our human side. So we are kind of in agreement here, I think, the speakers. People are not robots. As I keep on insisting in my classes, people are not robots. There are real people working for you, real people buying your products and services. Large organisations often forget this. Dare I say, some universities even forget this. But what can we do as universities? Well, focus on quality and authenticity. Again, be prepared to show our human side. Do things because we genuinely believe in them and not because we think it's what we need to be seen to be doing, which I think is an important point. Again, it's a similar sort of point. Build meaningful relationships with staff, students and local communities. Events like this, I think, are really, really important. Universities interacting with communities. And importantly, the most important point on all my slides, support truth and freedom of expression. The scientific method, show how liberalism is supposed to work. Demonstrate the value of universities in society. So final slide, I thought I'd just pose this to you because I think this is important, because we are all ultimately, I hope, people. What can we do as people, users of social media? Be critical about what you read. Check your sources. Be prepared to dig beneath the surface. If we've got time, I'm going to reveal a little moment when Sarah Wiggins sent me a news item once that turned out not to be correct about Oreo cookies. We'll come back to that anyway later on. But we all do it. We all make mistakes, and then this is how fake news spreads. Be careful about what you share. Is it legitimate? Seek truth. Call out misinformation when you see it, or fake news. Though, of course, this can take courage. But when someone makes a claim, ask for evidence. If someone makes a claim about something, by the way, the onus is on them to prove it. It's not on you to disprove it. And finally, I would say this, and this is maybe you might not have expected, be prepared to change your mind. The internet, as it stands today, social media, it kind of encourages us to think in polar sort of opposites, you know, left wing versus right wing. No, be prepared to be open-minded. We can sometimes be blinded by our own prejudices and the echo chambers that we live in. Be guided by evidence in all things and be prepared to admit that you may be wrong. So thank you very much. That was my intro. Do sign up to the MSc in Digital and Social Media Marketing, and I'll hand this over back to Karen.
All right, I should come back in. No, I might not come back into view of the cameras because you moved them around. Do you want me to move a bit? It's all right, is it? Okay, so that was a very interesting session, I think. Vinny, who's not on camera anymore, but Vinny started us off with this need for TikTok to have connection, to remember that it's there for the users. And then we've gradually moved into, and I'm glad that TikTok is there for the users too, and that marketers who are going to use TikTok need to remember that, you know, the users want other users to be doing things that are entertaining and that are interesting, that are informative. That sounds like the BBC's remit, doesn't it, when it first started up under Lord Reith, to educate, entertain and inform. We've got Simon with this absolute centrality of trust for brands, and how do we build trust, how do we maintain trust, and the lovely examples of Marks and Spencer, which has been on our high street for many long years. We've got Darren's amazing polemic there about this dystopian society, which is a bit of a thread that's then carried on running through things. I'd love to know about Sarah and the Oreos, but in the meantime, though, Sarah, I think as well, with everything goes from Vinny all the way through, we've had this need for humanity. We are humans. And Mike has just reminded us all in that last slide that we are humans. So I'm going to start with discussion off between our panelists first, and then we will get the audience to join in with some questions and to join in the discussion. So I'm going to kick off with Vinny, who's been left there by himself from the beginning. We still know you're there and we can see you on the screen now. Fantastic. So Vinny, how would you respond to what the other panelists have said? Because you had the hard task of going first and nobody knew what anybody else was saying. As Mike reported, he hadn't seen Sarah's slides. Nobody had seen anybody else's talk. So Vinny, how do you respond to what you've heard from our panelists?
No, I agree. I do echo a lot of the points that Simon, Darren, and Sarah mentioned about the state of social media. It is dying in a sense. It's also kind of evolving as well. So with all of these like UGC content and brand generate content or even employee generate content, I think there's loads of opportunities that opens up to brands as well as to users to have that more of an intimate connection, I think, and also emotionally as well. So I think the right way, or I think I'm allowed to say this from a platform perspective, having worked in the platform, understanding that we do have a whole lot of policies, and to kind of making sure that from a trust and safety perspective, platforms like social media platforms are there to provide a safe space for everyone, for our users, for brands to interact. So I think a lot of points there are we need to really continue the education on how brands can really activate on these new changes, and also adapting to all of this new behavior from our consumers and from brands as well. So I think yeah, a lot of the points that's been mentioned it is around trust and how it can influence how we as users to choose to be active or inactive in these like social media platforms. So yeah, I think there's loads and loads of different great points as well from different industry, from different experts in there. So it really got me thinking, just stepping out from this platform perspective as a marketer, as a social media expert, how do you really evolve your perspective, and how do you treat these new changes? I think is something that needs to be a consistent learning for us as well. So for me, I'm very neutral on in this point, even though I'm from a platform, but I'm very, very intrigued to understand how everyone's thinking and how their POV on this stuff. So yeah, really intrigued.
Thank you, Vinny. I'm going to pass this over to Simon's response to everybody's points.
Yeah, I think it's a lot more nuanced than just social media is bad. I think it's through the dawn of time, there's been good people and bad people. There's been good companies and good and bad companies, and in the case of social media, it can be used for good and for bad. I've seen lots of great companies, as I said before, M&S, do really good things on it, and there's other companies that again have used it brilliantly, but the ones that have used it brilliantly tend to be good at other stuff too. So a great example is someone like Octopus Energy. So Octopus Energy, biggest provider in the UK now, started 10 years ago, bigger than British Gas. They came into the market to be a disruptor, came in with this idea of being service-led first, being customer first, and have grown hugely. They have a fantastic social media presence where you'll see their CEO, on there doing talks, telling customers about why the prices are changing. He goes on and, you'll see him doing little tasks with chilies in the office, and making fun bits of content. And what that does is it brings personality to a brand that people probably wouldn't have seen before. I actually think there's a lot of positives in the fact that a lot of CEOs now are in some ways celebrities. Now, previously, that would have never been a thing. But now, if you've got a problem, you can go onto social media and get in touch with the CEO and make your complaint to him. And pretty quickly, it'll get sorted. We didn't have that ability previously. Now, I think that's the benefits of social media. And although, yes, there is a huge level of poor content, I would also counter that and say there is also a hell of a lot of really good content too.
Okay, thank you for that response. Of course, not all company bosses that are on social media are good guys, but we'll leave that to Darren. Darren, can I have your response to what the panel, what your peers on the panel have come up with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with a book recommendation, which I often recommend to people that work in marketing, which is called "I Hate the Internet" by an author called Jarrett Kobeck. It's very, very funny, but he essentially argues that the internet is the Antichrist because it's the enemy of creativity, intelligence, and ownership. And the book is about someone who is a comic book writer, and she has all her authorship and all her rights taken away from her by the internet. And I think what the internet as Antichrist is doing, and social media is the engine room of the internet to a large extent, but not the only extent, is two things. I think the first thing is something that I've heard described as ambient extraction, which is the slow erosion of people's souls through the continuous consumption of crap. And I think the other thing is an extreme version of echo chambers, which a lot of writers are referring to as bespoke realities, within which I think historically, and this is quite quaint, people used to generally have an agreement on what reality was, what was happening. They would have a different view on what that meant and what they should do about it and what have you. But I think the extreme version of echo chambers, these bespoke realities, is groups of people are now getting together and convincing themselves that reality is fundamentally different from another group of people. And I just think that's extremely, extremely dangerous. And I think Simon's right. There's loads of brilliant stuff on social. The problem is the people that control it. And the people that control it are like the people I referenced in my presentation, which are people who are thugs and thieves and rampant priests. They are the people that fundamentally control social. Zuckerberg famously still wangs on about it's all about connectivity. It is not. It's about making as much money as possible through the exploitation of people, through targeting things like psychological weaknesses and psychological needs and people who are going through really, really difficult points in their lives. And Zuckerberg in particular and his mob are essentially plundering people's souls because of the mechanisms that they are creating and they are perpetuating.
Okay, so we are in a bleak dystopia. Whether social media can survive for us to market via it is an interesting question. If you would like to respond, Sarah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's really interesting how similar a lot of our perspectives were on social media, and especially considering we hadn't seen each other's slides. So I'd emailed Mike and asked, can I see his slides? And Mike said, no, I want them to be a surprise. So it's good to see that everyone's on the same page. And I think, yeah, as much as I can come in with this really dystopian view of what social media, I feel the future of it will be, I do think there's a lot of nuance and there is some good with the bad as well, especially for marketing practitioners. It offers so much reach and scope. I've launched some of the best campaigns that I've ever done on minimal budget, and they've been really impactful because of that online space. I thought that Darren's point about social media fragmentation as well was really interesting. It's something that I have also kind of looked into with my own research is, we're all in our own camps on different social media platforms now. There's a monolithic approach where, some of the platforms are owned by the same people with Meta, but everyone's in their own camps, with Twitter still, or X being very political. You've got Facebook has their own audience. It's probably my mum and my nan. And then you have maybe that millennial audience on Instagram and younger people on TikTok, Snapchat. But a lot of these platforms all look the same. And I just think that yeah, there has to be some good with the bad as well. But overall, I think it is just about getting out and talking to your customers and bringing back the human.
Bringing back the human, Mike. Is there any hope for the humans in digital marketing?
No.
No, he said. No. Right. Okay, we'll
how
let
long
you
have you got?
expand. Go on. Not too long, because the audience want to have some
How
questions
long
as
have you got?
well.
Anyone's been in my classes will know. Yeah, I don't know that there is much hope for us really, because the social media is kind of reflecting us in a sense, right? Isn't it? And yeah, so I was glad when I saw Darren was on this panel, because I knew he had similar sorts of views to me. Maybe I don't express mine in such the same way as he does, but it is kind of worrying, isn't it? But I think what we've got here is we've got conversations on several different levels going on here, because I think on a sort of fundamental level for the businesses, I think it's very clear that there is sort of good ways and bad ways to be using social media and making use of it. And I think there are some really excellent examples of how it can be a positive force for good. The challenge, I think, more for me, because I think about these things a lot, is what this just means for us as a species, I think, as a sort of humanity. Like if you saw my Twitter feed in the morning, my days, and I'm not talking about things people are posting, I'm talking about the videos, short-term videos. I mean, I'm a sort of middle-aged man now, sort of, and I'm sort of reasonably well educated, but I was going to show you the pictures of what's on my feed. I could not show those in a public space, the sorts of things that are on my feed. Just the thirst traps everywhere, the sort of things designed essentially to just keep me hooked, right, and make me feel bad about myself. And it's like, I'm a reasonably well sort of educated, sort of critical person. Imagine what this is doing to our teenagers. Imagine what this is doing to maybe people who aren't maybe as well educated as everyone in this room here today. It's really quite depressing, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, it's tricky. I think it is tricky. I think things have got to change, but the problem we have is with regulation, I think, as much as anything. I know Vinny was talking about policies, but I think policies is a bit of a red herring, really, because I don't think any of the social media companies really believe in that. Sorry.
Right. So, do you want to come back in there?
I did,
Simon.
And I know I'm going to sound really harsh here in terms of I'm probably giving an entrepreneurial marketeer's view of the world. I think the thing that we're forgetting is that as marketeers, what's our job? Our job is to sell stuff to people. So although I know what Darren's saying about, well, yeah, there's all these, these terrible platforms, but for years and years, marketeers have sold stuff to people based on psychological factors. So we're not just doing the same at scale. We've sold many years ago. We used to sell cigarettes. We don't as much anymore. Many years ago, we'd sell oil. Now that's been our job. So we're not just doing the same thing, just in a different way. And that's the thing that I think we're forgetting as marketeers. That's our job, to sell stuff.
Okay.
Can I just quickly?
Yes,
can I
you
just
can
quickly
come in.
back on that?
I think Sarah wanted to come in too. I'll have you first, Darren.
Oh, you are so... I am getting so irritated by this.
Somebody else is talking, I think.
Who's talking?
Oh,
Did Darren want to come in?
No idea what mistake you just made.
Somebody's talking. Not got the
Someone turn that
microphone
mic
muted.
off,
I thought. So does Darren want to come in here?
Just kind of very quickly. I mean, Simon's right. I mean, we are there to persuade people to buy product A over product B, and good marketing does work by targeting those emotional desires. I think what I find particularly pernicious about Facebook, and this is a fact, not supposition, is they will deliberately target teenagers in moments of extreme psychological vulnerability where they're thinking about killing themselves. And that's fundamentally different from me persuading someone to buy some Nike trainers by having an ad work with Eric Cantona in it.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say something, Sarah, as well? Because you were...
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because I do think that digital marketing is this extension of traditional forms of advertising, but I don't think that it's the same in some ways, because it's never been as covert. The way that we segmented people to target, it's never used such covert and quite dark dystopian data practice. So
Yes.
yeah, I think it's that covert nature that differentiates of why it's a lot darker these days.
Okay, so I'm going to open it to the floor, but first I'm going to read this comment for the audience here, because I don't think they can read it because it's too far away. This is from Stuart Nolan, who's in our audience, and he made a comment at 1420. He says, one thing that is missing in the idea of being human is a full consideration of a crucial aspect of empathy. Empathy is not just about cognitive and emotional understanding, There is also an important physical aspect that only really occurs when bodies are present with each other. The disembodied nature of social media means that this is lacking and people behave differently without it. I'm thinking of Saeed Usman Shah, the British-born man featured on a Heathrow Airport Welcome to the UK display, who was then targeted with racist abuse online. Instead of responding in kind, he publicly forgave the abusers and invited anyone who had posted racist comments to come and share dates with him at Borough Market on the house. Several people who had abused him did turn up in person, apologised to him face to face, and in at least one case even brought flowers as a gesture of remorse. How can marketers bring the missing physical empathy into their work? So that's our question for the panel. Our first question. The rest of you can think of a question, but let's see if we've got answers. We'll start with Vinny. Vinny, have you got an answer? How do we bring the missing physical empathy into the digital world, into TikTok?
That's a big question, I think, and I think a lot of the brands and like content that we see on the platform, a lot of them are really connected to like emotions and trying to connect it to this person behind the brand, and how kind of like speak truthfully and authentically to it. So I think to answer that, there's a lot of work around like how brands are like really creating a space, or like how their content or their feed are looking more from a channel perspective, but also from like a brand perspective as well. So I mean, one great example, I think, when we look at like I guess Duolingo could be a good one, and how they the kind of run their kind of social media, and their account doesn't look like really traditional marketing if you like really look at it. And I think sometimes when you look at it as from a marketing perspective, there are obviously people or the team who's behind the account. You can't really prompt AI or like anyone to become the person who runs the handle. And I think that really requires that deep localized and iconic cultural empathy that I think the markets is the future of like how we kind of think about our kind of marketing strategy when it comes to creating these type of content. So I think really, and really from like a platform perspective, looking into like subculture as well, I would say, like the community that was created on the platform, like book talk, clean talk. A lot of these are kind of like very much closely related to like the economy, the whole environment as well. So like I guess one of the example that I could think of is the impact of book talk, for example, is a hyper specific subculture, and that was like fundamentally changed how the physical world. So brands like Waterstones and like Barnes Noble, they like actually had to redesign their physical store layout, and to like how to feature like book talk recommends like tables, and how they kind of layering their shops. And I think this is like where the power is like finding the niche and finding how you connect with like your consumers off platform. And I think this like type of digital subculture really drives that changes in like in your physical life. So, and I think to that, I think it really kind of connects into that to your consumer, to your user, from a on platform but also off platform experience as well.
Fantastic. So there's one connection, one answer. You connect, Stuart. You bring the physical empathy out into the real world from the platforms. If nobody else wants to answer that question, have we got any questions in the room? Has anybody got a question for our panel in the room? And if you've got a question online, please type it in the chat and I will share it with the panel. Yes, let me bring the microphone over to you. No, I can. It's mic. Oh, you shout. If you speak up, the ceiling will hear you. I'll hear you fine. There we are.
Will be in regards to how the first time in history the user is now the product. So in social media, they want to get as many people on because they are the product, and their privacy, their information is the product for these social media bosses. So until that's taken away, do you think anything's going to change?
Who wants to take that? So the user is the product. Who wants to answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, as part of there's an enormous book about surveillance capitalism that goes into a huge amount of detail based on that fact, and that was the point I was saying before, which is the way that Facebook's algorithms will identify, target, and exploit people, teenagers who are going through very, very, very difficult times, and I just think that's morally indefensible. I think there is hope. I know that I've been very, very doom and gloom, but I think one example of social media, and I think it is social to a degree, is because it requires it's made by many, is Wikipedia. So Wikipedia, when it was set up, they hold true to their principles. There is no advertising on that. Occasionally there might be a pop-up whereby it would say, can you throw in a couple of pounds to kind of keep it going? But it's become a brilliant demonstration of what humans can do when they collaborate and when they work together. And Wikipedia used to be a little bit of a joke, but increasingly it's incredibly accurate, because you get people writing on medical pages who are some of the world's best oncologists. You get other people coming in who are brilliant writers, and they will make the writing really easy. Other people would update different sorts of links. So it's possible, but again, you become what you measure. So measure what matters. Jimmy Wales is not interested in making money. He's interested in the gathering and dissemination of knowledge and information, whereby lots of people can come together. Zuckerberg and friends, and I keep banging on about him because he's evil, he's just interested in making as much money as possible for himself. And it doesn't matter what damage he causes to people. He doesn't care, because he's a sociopath.
Okay, all opinions represented in this meeting room are not the opinions of Lancaster University. I'm just making that quite clear. My personal opinions, I won't be sharing necessarily. Thank you very much for that. We've got a couple of questions on here, so I'm going to take one question from the screen, and I'll come back into the room. I'll come over to you next at the back there. So Bob Hart from Rosebank PR and Communication, a Lancaster company, says he'd argue that UGC, user-generated content, can and does build trust through storytelling and authenticity, but it can be hard for the content to gain traction without resorting to tricks designed to exploit platform algorithms. What thoughts do panelists have on how to cut through the noise of clickbait or rage bait? Shall I go to Mike? He's interested in rage bait.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. I think Hayley's just gone out of the room because she's very interested in this as well. So yeah, this is the thing. The algorithms change over time, right? You can't allow yourself to just fall into the trap of just chasing the algorithms. And this is the danger, right? Because the platforms encourage us to chase the algorithms. But really, if we want to be authentic and build trust, then we shouldn't be chasing the algorithms. We should just hope that the algorithms will respond to us. So there's a chicken and the egg kind of situation going on there, really, isn't there? I think we really need to be the sort of people that we want to be. We should be. It's very tricky.
So, okay. So, and has anybody got anything to add to don't chase the algorithms, really? Is it better not to chase the algorithms? Do we agree with that? I mean, Vinny, you have algorithms on your platform. Let's ask what your view is for Bob.
I would say, like, I'll probably answer this in more of like how, when we think about short-term video personalization as well, in terms of like how this like video formats, and when you're talking about clickbaits, etc. And I would really put the emphasis on like the attention span as well, because that's what the whole thing about, clickbait, attracting people to click on and watch the content. And I say, like, people say like audience have like that 3 second, or like very well known 3 second attention span, and I think personally that's incorrect. That's false. And I think people are like very happily to stay on to watch like a 50-part lo-fi story, this like viral who the F did I marry, this content from TikTok, and what they actually have is like the 3 second tolerance to the boredom, or like the interest of the content. If they find this engaging, they'll click off. But I think because of how the platform is running or set up, the feeds are really like deeply personalized. So I think to the user interest, and I think you really as a brand have to earn the spots for that as well. So I think when we're talking about how brands will deliver this promise in your video within the first 3 seconds, or how do you sort of like talk to your audience in a way, I think you really have to look into building a strategy, but also like a sandbox that will let them be part of the content and let them be part of the conversation. And I think the best campaign or ads that we're seeing like on TikTok or from brands are really kind of being very super like native to the platform, using sound on, trending audio, all of this, like how do you participate in part of that comment session as well. So I think really looking into your overall brand content strategy, and don't be afraid of like looking out for the changes, you know, becoming short form versus long form, or creating more of like a repeatable format, or more so like, you know, a series that you can kind of connect with the audience. So I think that's where how you could really kind of cut through the noise, or like, you know, tap into your audience, rather than just thinking about, oh, let's jump on this trend, let's do this like clickbait and then trying to attract people. So I think those are like my 2 cents in consideration on when
Okay.
it comes to generating content.
Top tips for TikTok. We've got a question over here, the gentleman in the red shirt.
My question is, there's been a lot of sort of pessimistic views of social media, but also optimism about the future of social media. So how do you think we make that jump from social media in its current state to some of the things that you've talked about, more authentic content? Are the users of social media partially to blame, because you can view social media as almost a market where content creators create content that social media users want to view, and things like AI sludge content, rage bait gets views? Or is it a case that actually social media users are being controlled and their inner desires are being worked, and the social media is controlling them rather than them choosing what they watch?
I'll hand it over to Sarah first.
It's a double-edged sword, definitely. I think that with this situation, it will probably and likely only change with legislation as well. And I think looking at the next question online, it is kind of, I think the universities and marketers as practitioners have so much power to change some of the situation. I think in universities, you know, looking at that critical thinking, we'll be able to shape hopefully future legislation to protect consumers, hopefully a little bit more, maybe to shape the platform dynamics that we see today that are quite damaging. But at the moment, as it currently stands, I think it is, the onus is on the platforms, but also the consumers themselves, potentially. That's my perspective anyway.
Thank you, Sarah. And Mike wants to jump in.
There's a big sort of elephant in the room here, in a sense, I think, in that we are fundamentally all biological creatures, and these platforms are tapping into deep-seated biological functions that make us want to sort of, we like socializing, right? But also, like, we like the sort of things we get sent on our feeds, like you say, and like we can't change our sort of biological functions. As I say, if I was to show you the things that I see on my feed each day, and it's because you stop, you instinctively stop on it, right, as you're sort of scrolling through, and it's so pervasive, so insidious, some of this stuff. And until the platforms change, I don't think we have any hope ourselves. I mean, not everyone goes to university, not everyone has the critical thinking skills, right? And this goes to everyone. So the ubiquity of social media is also the problem. So in a sense, there's kind of no escaping it, really, which is why I think legislation is needed in this sense, because the platforms clearly can't be trusted to do these things on their own. Because, and by the way, I should add, Carolyn being a bit of a gambling expert, they tap into our addiction complexes. It's about addiction, basically. So, yeah.
It is exactly the same as a gambling addiction. You know, all of the same things that you see in gambling games are present on social media. Every single one of the things that would cause you to be addicted to horse racing, to football betting, to slot machines, all of those same reward mechanisms are triggered by social media, and they're using the same strategy. So that is absolutely true. Thank you very much for that, guys. And we're going to a question online. Hang on a minute. What was a I need to scroll down because it's the one above Michelage. I know Michelage is on a project with us, Mike. Michelage is on our project. So it starts. So can you scroll down a little bit somewhere? Social media users are sick of in such an overwhelming and ad-saturated space. This is Lottie Ingham. In such an overwhelming and ad-saturated space where social media users are sick of brand pushing influencers and crave authenticity from businesses and creators, how can marketers sell and promote their products and services without losing that integrity, trust, or selling power? That's a difficult question. You know all about trust and loyalty, Simon. Yeah. I'm going to ask you to answer that question first.
Yeah, cool. I mean, there's always going to be, I'll call them snake oil salesmen. You know, and they've been a thing for hundreds and hundreds of years. That now, to a degree, social media has allowed more people to become those snake oil salesmen. I think the businesses that do it well are the businesses that just do marketing well. And again, I've reflected on a couple of examples there. M&S's, your octopuses. And I think what those businesses do that others don't, and I think this is a challenge in economic society too, is we've become really, really short-termism in terms of business performance metrics. It's all about the latest quarter. It's all about the current financial year. How can we squeeze as much profit, as much revenue out of this quarter? Which, when you measure in those short periods, means that you act in a way that often is short-termism, which is let's sell more to the customer no matter what we say. And actually, the best businesses, I think, are the ones that have long-term strategies that isn't always about short-term numbers. It's about building long-term value and long-term relationships with customers. And it's the same with social media. If you chase the clicks in the short term, you'll do the wrong things. Whereas if actually you chase a long-term relationship with customers in a social media sense over the long term, and you create users that come to you because they trust you and like your content, as opposed to coming to you for a short-term viral piece of content, then you'll have a lot more success.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in there because giving the audience an example of that, I would say that the company Snag Tights, they're now Snag Clothing, I think. Everything on there is user-generated content. Everything was digital word of mouth, social media word of mouth, and you don't get any rage bait on a Snag host. You just get lots of grateful women who can buy clothes that fit.
Yeah.
So people and who trust the brand, and that brand's only been going since 2017.
Yeah.
But it started slow.
Yeah.
It started slow. They weren't chasing clicks.
No.
So what you're saying is it doesn't matter if you start slow.
No.
Don't chase clicks.
Don't chase clicks. Like, my wife's an Instagrammer, and she will often compare herself to others in her field. So she's like interior design field, and there's others in her kind of field of influence that have 400, 500,000 followers, and she's like, oh, I need to get to 100,000. It's taken her kind of 3 years to get to 50,000. I keep on saying to her, but that doesn't matter, because 500,000 of those people, they may have the numbers, but have they got the engagement? Have they got the actual true belief in that, in what you're trying to kind of communicate? And here, slow 50,000 are a lot more engaged than 500,000 who, maybe actually don't even like the influencer who sat in front of them. They just follow them because
they can rage bait.
100%.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So have we got a question in here? Yes, we have, up there at the back.
Thank you very much. That was dead interesting. To get to my question, your point on legislation, personally, I'm not overly convinced on. I don't think legislation changes anything, because it's only worth how the enforcement's going to act, and we can't enforce anything anymore. Where legislation has helped is where culture helps legislation. Smoking ban, seatbelts. What was the other one?
They're national level, aren't they, though? That's the thing. They're national level kind of enforcement. So you're right, because the assumption is that the enforcement would be possible as well, but they're international corporations.
And given that the president of America in the last month has called multiple people traitors, piggies, poor women, and that's accepted, that's the norm on the social media. So leadership from the front is possibly poor. So where do you guys see social media going in the near-term future in practice for the practitioner who still has to sell stuff on there?
Okay, I'm going to go to Darren first, because I think Darren will have something interesting to say about this.
I'm
sure they all will.
The first thing, Simon's point about short-termism is absolutely bang on. There's been a number of meta-analyses that have looked at significantly declining return on marketing investment because of the tyranny of short-termism is just going for clicks and just going for immediate sales. And because we're talking about trust here, trust is something that has to be earned over a period of time. As I said in my thing, it's someone trusting someone to reduce harm, reduce potential risk, but also gain the upsides. And I think some of the best examples of businesses using social media are actually relatively small brands. So one of my favorite, they make amazing jackets. They're all on pre-order. It's called Fram. And it was set up by somebody who used to work in marketing. He had a nervous breakdown. He loved jackets. That was his real passion. He hated the way that men's jackets was a rip-off. The quality was really, really poor. So he's got an interesting background story, but he has earned followers and earned trust over a period of time through a really good combination of revealing different types of stories. Like Vinny was saying, sometimes it's stories about his design, sometimes it's about inspiration, sometimes it's about collaboration. Sometimes he goes on a factory visit and he'll go to like Helly Stevenson's in Dundee that make dry wax cotton, which they used to make sails from. And what it does, it demonstrates his principles in practice, which is these are amazing jackets. They're not cheap, but if you buy one of these, you can kind of bury in it. And I think that there's Lancs is another company. They make amazing boots in Lancashire. Similar kind of thing. It's a bunch of people who are just very, very passionate about what they do. And they're just natural, authentic storytellers. And they've earned trust organically over a period of time. And I think that's probably still the best advice. It's like Simon said, this is to me is just good marketing. It's having a sense of who you are. It's having a confidence in who you are. It's being authentic, but it's putting things out there that there's a value exchange. People are interested in these stories. They're interested in personal stories. They're interested in origin stories. They're interested in why a jacket is worth however much it kind of happens to be. And I think too many of the large brands, it's just kind of industrial scale in terms of what they're doing. And people are starting to see through it. So, as much as a lot of what I've said is doom and gloom, there are lots of people out there doing really, really great work, but they tend to be the smaller brands. There are a few examples, M&S and what have you. But I think if I was a marketer, I'd look at the smaller brands who have built very, very slowly over a period of time by building trust organically, not by chasing it and not by buying it.
Okay, Vinny, can you just give us a view from TikTok about regulation? My question is interested in, he doesn't think regulation can work or is feasible. What do you think? I would gather we're not going to ban social media in the UK for under 16s. We know that much because the government have announced that. But what about other regulation?
Yeah, I think it's quite a sensitive topic to pick up, I guess. From if I take my my platform hat off for a second, I think I just wanted to kind of address that as from like a social media or a marketeer point of view. I do think there is, I guess, a restriction there, obviously, to try and tie back in this targeting younger audience and stuff. But I think it also imposes the fact that we, as marketers and as practitioners, we need to think about, also to Sarah's point, we need to how do we create value and educate these like younger generation, and to think about the sort of future of social media and how we shape that all together as a community. And I think that's also quite an important point, where all these like brands are also doing a lot of work and content around building the positive environment, and how they're partnering with platform to do a lot of different campaigns that are more meaningful, like and like International Women's Day, or like all these kind of like moments, and where they can really tap into a community that speaks of more like positive news, rather than kind of looking into the sort of restriction and not being able to go on social media. And I think there's a lot of there's two sides of it. Obviously, for brands, there's quite an impact if they do want to target this audience. But then I guess on the other side, for creators and for other users as well, or parents, for examples, I think there are a lot of appreciation in there, how they can really enjoy the time of not being on social media at a certain age. And then as time you grow, you kind of have that mindset when you're ready for social media. So I think that's one thing that I would add on to it from not from a platform perspective, but from personal perspective.
Very clearly, like we're not having a Lancaster University perspective about people being evil. We're not having a platform perspective about regulation. Okay, if we scroll up on the questions, I think Mikolaj Janek's question was the next one, and I can't see it. Oh, is it? I see it there at the top. What is the most important task for academia in this situation? Shall we prepare students to be more critical, to do more critical thinking, to have more power in this two directions vector of influence between the social media and humans? So who's going to answer me that? What's our responsibility as academics?
I can answer it, but I didn't want to sort of take over from anyone else. Did you want to start?
Sarah, do you want to?
Yeah, it's like I mentioned to yourself earlier. I think with academia, it's our responsibility almost to educate people. I think if we can educate and shine some light on what's happening on social media, to be it consumers, the government, it will hopefully make a difference. I think we've got, so many young people who think that using social media is a free resource, but you are paying with your soul and all of your data. And at the end of the day, if we can empower consumers to take a step back, that pester power, the brands are going to follow the consumers, and then what's going to happen to the platforms? It will strip them of that kind of monolithic power that they have currently. That's my perspective.
Okay, I think that's a fair perspective. I think that's a good answer. I think, has anybody else got anything to add? What do we have a responsibility to do as academics? I think I have a responsibility to make my students think critically.
I mean, yeah, the criticality thing is important. I think as well. In my very first lectures that I do in social media and at master's level, I say, well, Mike's golden rule is digital marketing is just marketing, right? Don't think that the two things are separate. So this is why Simon's point and Darren's points earlier about this sort of thinking long term is so important. I think there's also this risk, isn't there, that people can mistake social media for being easy because it's so easy to create content, but that doesn't mean it's good content. And so it's understanding the importance of authenticity.
There's nods from behind you there.
Good.
Lots of enthusiastic nods from Darren and Vinny.
Because a lot of, especially my undergraduates, they will come in thinking, oh, I'm going to do Mike's social media course because, social media is easy and it'll be a really easy pass. Well, no, actually, it's not. It's actually doing it well is really, really hard, especially if you don't have much to say.
Okay, so our responsibility is to teach students to do social media marketing well.
And it's to
and ethically.
Yeah, and to think about, because it's the critical questions you equip them with. Because when I started teaching it, TikTok didn't exist basically, and sort of this video streaming thing. So we have to teach them the skills to be able to apply to any platform, whatever platform comes along in the future, whether it's the metaverse, whichever version of the metaverse it might be. Blue Sky came and went, Google Plus came and went. It's tricky.
Okay, so.
Well, we need that for everyone. We need that for everyone.
Okay, well, yes, and of course, media studies has more or less withered on the vine, hasn't it? Have we got another question from in the room? Because I've got a lot on. Yes, we have got a question from in the room.
I think because legislation seems to not be like the most appropriate route right now. Do you think social media could also come there'll be social media developed as a solution to solve the problems that have been caused by it? Because currently, let me see the doom scrolling on Instagram Reels, TikTok now. I've seen Substack has now come up as an app, like encouraging people to read more, trying to bring back that curiosity. Because in a way, social media does take away people's curiosity and ability to form their own opinions. Because it's easier to watch someone tell you about something and give you their opinion, and you're like, that sounds really good. I can go and say this to someone and they'll think I'm very intellectual. But that's not really like that's not how that person actually reasons.
Okay, so who's going to answer that question, Darren? Can social media cure itself, so to speak? Will it actually evolve in such a way as to get better? You sort of hinted it might at the end of your talk.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it can do. I'm a great believer that what the internet enables, in very simple terms, is organization without organizations. And humans are very, very inventive and very, very adaptive. And even though the current platforms are, you know, I think as a board people are not great, people can still come together, people can still problem solve, people can still collaborate on different sorts of things. The longest example, as I said before, is Wikipedia, but it's not the only example of a sort of here comes everybody solution, where the ability for the internet to connect people together around kind of common aims. So the mechanisms are absolutely still there. And I can see the legislation thing is really interesting. I think the gentleman who made the point, I think he's right, because it operates at the moment. It's too slow, it's too rigid in the way that legislation develops, and it's too complicated from an international point of view. And I think we need something new. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but we need something which is a sort of socially distributed, socially collaborative organization that can legislate, but also importantly, it's got teeth. And I think when the brands and the businesses that spend the money on social media start to take notice, then I think that's the only thing that will force the hand of the different platforms when you start to take their money away from them. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I do think that you know, humans being humans, sometimes we're good, and we are capable of you know, doing good things when we come together if we want to.
Okay, thank you for that, Darren. Does anybody have any? Simon has got something to add to that.
I was just going to say, I think Darren's right in a way around consumers hating these businesses where in the pocket is what's going to change things. And I don't know whether that will happen. I don't know whether that'll happen will happen from a legislative perspective, but I think it may change with consumer behavior. Like a great example, when we talked about the different platforms, you know, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, to me, like Facebook was huge in my era. As far as I see, it's dead as a dodo and dying. You know, if I talk to my 15-year-old about Instagram, he looks at me as if to say, that's for 40-year-olds, Dad. You know, so TikTok's the next thing. There will be more of these platforms that come about, and actually they might have different ways of working and different mechanisms for interacting that we don't even know about yet. And I think that will define what the future of social media looks like, what the next generation does with it. And that might be actually they just get sick of it all and they hate it, and yet they do decide to go back out in the world again. Or, you know, they will use it in a slightly different way. I don't think we know that yet. Whatever happens, I think there will be a constant new platforms coming into the market and other ones just disappearing. And hopefully, Vinny, for you, TikTok isn't one of them, but I think it could be.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that, I'm sure TikTok isn't going to disappear. I'm sure it continually reinvents itself. We have only got 2 minutes left, so I can't take any more. We've got lots of interesting questions up here. I'm sure that if the questioners were to email, our panelists might be able to answer at some point. They might be interested. I hope you've all found this interesting and useful. I would really very much like to thank our very esteemed panelists. So we've got Vinny Wong online. We've got Darren Savage, as provocative as usual, online. We've got lovely Simon. I can't remember Simon's surname, which is terribly rude of me, but Simon here, and we've got Mike Ryder, and we've got Sarah Jane Wiggins. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I hope you found this an enjoyable and thoughtful and thought-provoking event. And if you would like to find out about partnering with us, if you're a business, if you'd like to find out about partnering with us for research projects, for innovation partnerships, do get in touch with Emre or myself, and we will put you in touch with the right people. Because just like Mike can promote his digital marketing masters, which is fantastic, of course, it's a superb course, we also offer fantastic innovation partnership opportunities too. Thank you very much, everybody.